Time for another Q&A. This video is made possible by all my patrons on Patreon, and you can help support Rocked on Patreon by clicking on the YouTube card or the link in the description. Let's get to it. Who would you rather hang out with, Horror Guru or the Dom? Neither is not an answer. Trollface. Sure it is. Neither. Pink Floyd or Rush? For me, Pink Floyd. Just when I first heard Shine On You Crazy Diamond, that hooked me instantly, and Wish You Were Here is one of my favorite albums ever. Yeah, so Pink Floyd just for that alone, and then you have Dark Side of the Moon. Rush, I like songs, but not in the whole entire albums. I like more individual tracks from Rush. That's not to say Rush is bad by any means. Love Rush still. I'm just saying Pink Floyd for sure. If you had to pick your least favorite genre of music and or your least favorite musical artist, what would they be and why? I don't know about least favorite artists from a certain genre, but country music, real pop country, the current trend going on now over the last few years, I can't stand. It literally gives me a headache, and it's just so repetitive in the music itself. The lyrics change up, especially when they're more of a country artist, but it's still synthesized, auto-tuned. It's such a Fruity Loop music loops on drum beats. It's just so completely monotonous, boring, and then it just gets grating because some of the music they have behind the vocals, it's just nothing to it. You could tell they made that in a studio on a laptop. There's no passion to it. It was made just to highlight vocal pops, and that's it. It really does a disservice to country. And I have nothing against true country back in the day, or even musicians that are in the country that really have a passion for it, because lyrically that's what usually stands out more. But the music behind it is something that's supposed to be important. And today that's really a lost art. So yeah, the current scene of country now with this pop and remix country they're doing is pretty bad. Hey Luke, I've never heard you mention a thing about the band 1000 Foot Krutch. Have you ever heard of them? If yes, what you think? I think 1000 Foot Krutch is okay. That was actually an album review I did years ago. It was one of them on Oxygen Inhale, but it got flagged by YouTube bots back in the day. And just many other problems with that. This was before different bot roulette systems, before I got whitelisted by a bunch of labels on YouTube and stuff. I think they're fine. I think their better days are behind them. I haven't heard them really contribute that much of anything new that really stands out to me. Not terrible, not fantastic, just kind of middle of the road for me. I know it's not the best argument for if I like a band for or against, but all the stuff I've seen and heard from them is stuff that's quite a few years old now. So maybe they'll surprise me one day, but yeah, Oxygen Inhale was the last album I heard from them, and even that I liked fine, but it didn't really pique my interest any more than I had with him anyway. Have you ever considered covering international music festivals like Rock am Ring, Download, and Hellfest? I'd assume why you hadn't covered these events would be because of time and money constraints. 100% yes, the Hellfest lineup this year was something I looked at and my jaw dropped. I loved it. And I found out there's another member of Music Existence, one of the music sites I'm on, is going to be in Europe to cover it because they're closer to it. Oh my gosh, I would go if I could. If I could find the time and just set everything up to go out there, I would be there in a heartbeat. The lineup just alone is worth the trek. It's just there's so many other things going on, there's no way I can. But yeah, the music festivals in Europe blow the ones in the US out of the water. Just look at the lineup for Hellfest alone in France, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I mentioned Dance Gavin Dance quite a lot on your channel, by the way, sorry about that. But I want to know, what's your opinion on all those psychedelic guitar crazy acts like Fall of Troy, Hail the Sun, Stolas, and Dance Gavin Dance. Okay, I've heard of Hail the Sun, I've heard really good things about them, haven't heard much of their music though. Dance Gavin Dance, I saw live at Hellfest, the A Day to Remember tour. And I liked them fine, I liked their live performance, they got into it, the crowd loved it. Haven't heard a ton of their music though. Not opposed to checking more of their stuff out though. So Dance Gavin Dance and Hail the Sun are two bands I would totally be fine with checking out more of. Do you think A Perfect Circle's new album can live up to expectations after being away for so long? Yes, I do. We've already heard 3 songs from the new album Eat the Elephant, and they're, in my opinion, stellar. I love them. So I think they'll deliver just fine. Maynard James Keenan is the type that takes his time to release something, and he has not just been away. He's had Pussifer tours, he's had their albums, he's been touring with A Perfect Circle on and off, and he's had Tool tours also. Also, Tool's new album might be coming out soon. There's probably more questions coming about that later. So I definitely think Eat the Elephant will be able to at least hit expectations. Whether it'll be better than 13th Step or Murder Gnomes, in my opinion, I don't know yet, but they're on the right track. What is your favorite movie, TV show soundtrack? TV show... I don't know, opening theme song for X-Men, the animated series, is still something I sing and whistle or hum to myself all the time. I even do the da-da-da-da-da to myself. I don't know if that's good or bad. Movies, Lord of the Rings, the entire full soundtrack I have, and it's amazing. Just for so many everyday experiences or just driving, like on road trips, it's a lot of fun to listen to. I also grew up listening to the Nightmare Before Christmas soundtrack. There's a lot of good songs on there that are just fun to listen to. Speaking of which, no one really makes fun soundtracks like Rocky Horror Picture Show anymore. Stuff that's intentionally meant to be fun and sing along to, but also very catchy and go with the story. Even if the story doesn't make much sense anyway. That's kind of missing. I wish some of that would be back. What releases this year are you looking forward to the most? Well, the one I already mentioned, A Perfect Circle. If Tool can get something out by December, definitely that one. There was a few others though. Seven Dust has a new album coming out in a couple months. I'm a huge Seven Dust fan ever since junior high. Loved them, loved seeing them live every time. There's a lot of stuff coming out this summer too. There's a lot of stuff that came out this past few months. But yeah, so Seven Dust has one, A Perfect Circle, potentially Tool. I know Slash just announced a new album coming out. Tesseract has one coming out, I think, next month. So there's a ton of stuff coming up. Who are you excited for the most, Tool or A Perfect Circle? Wow, that's a tough one. Now A Perfect Circle, because I've heard 3 of the songs, and I know what to expect. My appetite has been whetted a little more. Tool, once I know that something's in the woodworks, if I hear a clip of a new song itself, or an anticipated release date, then yeah, I'll be full on the train for that, ready to go. So it's just because I've heard and I know the release date's coming for April, I'd say A Perfect Circle's Eat the Elephant. What is your opinion on rock musical film theater? Are there any favorites? I can't say there's favorites, but yeah, rock musical films, I wish they would make them more like Across the Universe for the Beatles stuff, you know? There was so much more involved that could be a lot of fun. I'm always a big fan when they try to make the music a main part of the film. And then I already mentioned Rocky Horror Picture Show. I don't know if that counts or not, but yeah, come on. The music in there is so ridiculously memorable for all the right reasons, even though if the movie probably isn't something you should show your kids, I still recommend that. As for theater, like rock opera and stuff, there's tons, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. Sorry, that's kind of a non-answer too. I'm really getting bad at that, aren't I? What is the worst album you have ever reviewed for regretting the past? I've talked about this briefly before. Saint Anger gave me a headache. Legitimately gave me a headache when I listened to it from front to back. So that's where my worst memories are. Limp Bizkit's results may vary. Was pretty rough too. Also, Simple Plan. The Simple Plan albums always put me in a roller coaster of emotions. I start out laughing hysterically by the second track because it's so bad. Then I get really just discouraged that I'm like only halfway through, just like, what am I doing? I hate this. And then by the last track of the album, I'm just really angry and frustrated. So I guess along the lines of those of that Saint Anger, Results May Vary, and the Simple Plan albums. Wow, there's a list of albums I never really want to push together and have to listen to back to back. Gross. Are there things about the culture of rock that you would change if you could? Yeah, 2 really big things that stick out in my mind. Number 1, people aren't going to concerts as much. Festivals are making a lot of money now because people are going to festivals all over the country and their spots, like just, I don't know, sprouting out. I guess that's the word I was looking for. All over now because they're doing so well. Regular concerts though in concert venues, not as much. I wish people would make the time and look up tours and see and make it an event. Even if the club is or the venue is an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours away, so what? That's worth it, you know? You could have a really good time and support a band, even if it's just that once a year that you go to that. It's something huge, and you could really be making a difference for that band that you really like their music for. If you go to a concert also, and you have a little bit of money to make that event for once a year for a concert, buy a t-shirt, buy a CD at the concert, just buy a $1 sticker or a $1 patch. Watch how many more bands will come to your town if that happens and merch actually sells in that city. So it's just something along the lines of that for like when people say, oh man, I never get to see any bands anymore. Well, you have to figure out ways to go see them yourself too. Because bands are still touring and concerts are still coming up, but like not as much. And it sucks if you live in a more rural part of the world, but it's still, the music's still out there. And really quickly, the other thing, I wish people would buy and pay for albums. It's been the same thing since the 90s, you know? People record, people stream, people download. If you're really willing to help an artist out, pay $7.99 for the album. for the digital copy. Have it on Amazon and have it on your account, and you can burn that to a CD if you really want to have a CD. I know people like to collect. If you do vinyl, most vinyl albums you buy now, you get a free digital download anyway. I just wish people would invest the $7.99 up to $9.99 on an album if they know it's from a band they're gonna like, if they check out reviews on my channel and any other channel too, because there's a lot of them on YouTube, and then go and buy that album if it's something they really think about. Especially if they've already heard a few songs on there, if they can check everything else out on Spotify or Napster or YouTube. I think it's worth it for that alone. So, yeah. Thoughts on Wolf Alice? I consider Visions of a Life to be 2017's album of the year. I've only heard very little of Wolf Alice. I heard Sad Boy, and I just found out they made a music video for them like a couple weeks ago. Boy, oh boy, they have found the perfect combination of like a 90s feel for like the alternative side, and it's something deep and industrial and dark and creative, and meshing that together beautifully. And that was just from one song. I haven't heard that much more from Wolf Alice, but yeah, I feel like they have something unique. So if you're into that type of music and like good female vocals, check that out. Have you ever heard of the band Wage War? Definitely have. I saw them at Hellfest where I saw Dance Gavin dance too, oddly enough. Like 'em fine, have not heard their full album though, but they put on a great live show. I took photographs of them and I posted them online. I haven't heard much of their albums. I don't know if it'd be for me or not because that market is very flooded and I'm just trying to catch up on so much other stuff. But I do remember a lot of people packing in to see that side stage that Wage War played on, and they were all over the place. They really had the crowd going. So for anything else, they know how to put on a good live show and they really get into it and they sound fine live too. So yeah, Wage War's at least got the thumbs up in my book for the live show. What do you think things will be like if albums somehow started implementing DLC like video games do to nickel and dime users? Like if you had to pay to access certain tracks on a CD or something like that, that would be the final death, a nail in the coffin for people actually going out to buy albums. That is terrible. I can see it happening. Oh, well this is the standard version of the album. If you want to hear all the songs, you have to pay an extra $3 when you get home, even if you buy a physical copy. That's awful. I don't even like that when people have to pay for DLC anyway. Final Fantasy 15 was like a big game that I expected them to do that a couple years ago, and they did. They actually gave DLC away, which was huge. But yeah, if they did that for music, holy crap, that would be the uprising point, the flashpoint for everything to burn down, and uprising of just people saying, you know what, I'll just stream everything, I don't care. That would suck. Also, I remember back in the day, like late 90s, when computer technology and the internet was at home was really finally busted out. Everyone had AOL and AIM and stuff like that, and Yahoo. If you bought a CD, I remember Deftones' White Pony did this, but you didn't have a certain version of the song that was released after the album came out. You could put your hard copy CD into it, go to their band's website, like Deftones.com or whatever it was back in the day, and they could download that song to the album. The problem, it rarely ever worked for everyone because most people's computers back in the late 90s weren't up to snuff. So that's what kind of sucks about that. So even that alone also, so many problems for that. But yeah, DLC for music, heck no. Can I see it being possible? I can see someone trying. I mean, if U2 can push their music to every iTunes user in the world, and yeah, something like that's possible too. Man, I hope it never happens though. Have you ever considered making videos about rock history, something like reviewing a decade in terms of rock music? Odor, the top 10 rock songs of any given year. I think it meant over. I guess that would be very time consuming. I thought about something like that, like discographies, like going over each album from a certain band, like Rage Against the Machine, or going over decades of music, the 60s and 70s, and even just top 10s, because there's a lot of people that do the top 10 hit songs of 1972 and something like that. Not against that, there's just other stuff I really want to cover. There's a couple long videos I still want to make, it's just a time thing, because I work. My day job and the commute together takes about 11 hours a day, 5 days a week, and that eats up a lot of time. So I'm not opposed to that, but there's just other projects that I am looking into doing. Like next one's I'm thinking of is going to be comparing all the vocalists of certain bands in a time era and seeing who's the best. So just something like that. I guess that's kind of history-based, but not really. So I'm not opposed to it, but I don't have anything planned like that. You've said before that the first two releases from Creed and Nickelback aren't really all that bad. Curb and the States, and My Own Prison and Human Clay. Yeah, they're really not, guys. But what about Limp Bizkit? Do you think there are any merit behind the first two albums? Personally, I think those albums have quite a few hidden gems, especially on the instrumental side. Yeah, I've never minced my words, really. The instrumental side, usually on Limp Bizkit, is pretty strong. It's just that whine on the vocals that really kind of kills it for me. But I remember $3 Bill Y'all, when I heard that the first time, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. But yeah, the instrumental's strong. So it's the same issue with Limp Bizkit. It's just as time goes on, the instrumentals get weaker and weaker. And then, yeah, so I guess the same format though. The first album or two stays pretty solid, and then it just all derails. Nickelback, Creed, Limp Bizkit. Yeah, sad. Which older band's history do you find fascinating? Lots of them. Too many to name. I do like looking at history, like the members of who was in what band and things like that. Some of the metal bands have a lot of people going in and out. Metallica alone, with Dave Mustaine being in the original lineup, the whole story about getting too drunk for Metallica and getting kicked out of that band. That is award-level drinking. Dang. And there's other problems with that too, I know. There's a ton of stuff like that though, just looking up the history and things like that. The Beatles, you know? When you really look back at the 60s of the Beatles, think about how long they were together. Less than a decade. And they had that much of an impact on the world. Pop culture, movies, TV, and including their music. So there's always a lot to take in, and sometimes you just have to dive into Wikipedia and just read, and it's always worth it, but yeah, I'm definitely interested in some of that stuff. Lane Staley or Chris Cornell, choose wisely. I'm actually going to make a video about that, and I already talked a little bit about this earlier. I'm actually going to make a full video about who had the best voice at a time era, and this one was grunge. So when we talking about the big four bands, including Alice in Chains and Soundgarden, the big four of grunge that I like to call it, instead of the big four of metal, and really talk about, or the big four of thrash metal, and just really talk about the grunge vocalists and see who had the best voice. And my answer to that right now, you'll find out at the video. Sorry, I know cliffhangers suck, but I actually am making that long video. It'll be my next long video after this upcoming Regretting the Past, which I'm writing right this weekend. So, sorry for the cliffhanger, but yeah, you're gonna find out the answer, and I'll make it more than just me talking. I'll make a full video on it. Thank you again to everyone who took part in this Q&A. You can check out my Patreon in the YouTube card or in the description if you want to take part in the next video I do for one of these. Please subscribe, it helps out a ton. You can check out my concert photography on Instagram, and you can keep up to date with Rocked on Facebook and Twitter.